Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The movie begins with a man named John running at an incredible speed through an Irish forest. However, since he's lost, he ends up back at the same spot again. Then, he sees a sign on a base made of branches and a tree of skulls, with a board that reads, Point of No Return 108. John becomes terrified as he realizes he's running in circles in a massive forest. The daylight fades, and darkness begins to fall. John decides to climb a large tree to protect himself from any potential danger. Unfortunately, he falls and gets injured. In a state of panic over what's happening, he hears something approaching from behind the trees. He grabs a knife from his bag. The sound gets louder and louder, like a monster running. Unfortunately, the creature quickly reaches John's location. Within seconds, John is in a state of disbelief, shocked by the creature's existence. The creature drags him toward a pit, and all it's heard afterward is the sound of screaming. A young American woman named Mina, who works in animal rescue in the city of Goiânia. Her manager called her over to show her a beautiful bird, telling her that she would be the one responsible for transporting it to a zoo on a full-day trip. Mina agreed, took the bird, and brought it home. She sat in front of the cage, talking to the bird alone, telling it that her mother died 15 years ago, which is why she often appears tired and exhausted. She told the bird she was heading out, and as she got up, the bird mimicked her words, proving it was intelligent. Mina changed her clothes, put on a wig, and went to a bar, introducing herself to a man there as Caroline. After some light conversation, they spent a pleasant evening together. The next day, Mina took the bird and began her journey by car. Along the way, she kept talking to the bird to pass the time. Later, she was seen at a gas station refueling her car. When she got back in, she found a voicemail from her sister, Lucy, asking why she didn't attend their mother's memorial. Lucy explained how the day went and expressed concern, asking Mina to call her back. Still deeply affected by their mother's death, Mina didn't respond and continued her journey. At the gas station, she noticed a poster board with missing persons posters, all of whom had disappeared in the same direction she was headed, the same area where John was taken by the creature earlier in the film. After listening to her sister's message again, Mina sped up her car for a moment but then slowed down and continued driving cautiously. Eventually, she reached a dense forest that the road passed through. A little while later, Mina's GPS malfunctioned and the radio switched stations unexpectedly. Suddenly, her car stopped. Surprised, she got out of the car to figure out where she was and saw a sign that read, Point of No Return 12. Mina decided to take the bird and walk to see if there were any nearby residents. On the way, Mina screamed for help but didn't stray more than 50 meters from her car. However, when she turned around to head back, the car was gone, which terrified her even more. She ran toward where the car had been, but it had disappeared. Mina thought she was gonna die, lost in the forest, so she started talking to the bird she had with her and named it Darwin. Suddenly, a noise began, and a large flock of birds flew over her head. Things got even scarier when the ground started shaking, and something moved among the trees behind her. Mina ran toward the sound and found an old woman standing and watching her. But the woman quickly started running again. Mina decided to follow her, calling out that she needed help and that something strange was happening in the forest. The old woman vanished before her eyes, but suddenly reappeared, opening the door to a square shelter. She told Mina to come inside if she wanted to survive, so Mina quickly entered. The old woman's name was Madeline, and with her were two young people named Kiara and Daniel. Mina asked them where they were, and Madeline replied that they called the place the Nest, and that, like her, they were lost in the forest. Madeline explained that there were creatures in the forest called Watchers, who wanted to observe them. She reassured Mina that nothing would happen to her, and that these creatures came every night to watch from outside until the sun rose. Later, Madeline asked Mina to step forward, and suddenly, a sound began. Mina realized there was clapping, and the creatures were applauding and welcoming her. Night passed, and when daylight came, Mina decided to leave to try and find her way back home. But her new companions warned her that she wouldn't succeed. The old woman told them to let her go, and Mina walked in any direction through the forest, trying to find her car. Not far from the nest, Mina heard a woman's voice calling her name. When she looked to the other side, she saw a woman running in fear. Mina ran as well, carrying the bird with her. When she reached a spot where she could see the entire forest around her, she realized that escaping was impossible. With no other choice, Mina returned into the forest and went back to Madeline, who approached her and told her that they had all tried to escape before, but failed. The old woman then asked Mina to show her something and explained that the forest could cause hallucinations and drive people mad. However, she told her they had learned how to deal with it and control themselves, so the evil around them wouldn't take over their minds. Madeline showed Mina the same signpost she had seen earlier and explained that these signs were scattered throughout the forest, forming a near-complete circle. Each sign was about half a day's walk from the nest, Madeline warned Mina that if she crossed those lines, she could get lost and never return. Mina asked who put up the signs, and Madeline replied that the young people call the person who made the signs the professor. They all returned to the nest, and later that night Daniel, who had mental health issues, began acting as if he were a show host, performing for the watchers. Mina asked Madeline what she planned to do, and Madeline told her she would behave normally. Kiara bowed to the creatures, and Mina was impressed by her composure. The next day, Mina followed Kiara, who soon started talking about the things she enjoyed doing. She mentioned that her husband, John, had been missing for 6 days and hadn't returned. At one point, Kiara began to suspect that John had sent Mina to this place, but Mina didn't know him. Kiara continued and showed Mina some medicinal plants. Mina then asked what the creatures wanted from them, and Kiara replied that she didn't know. However, Madeline had told them that just seeing one of the watchers could drive a person mad. Kiara then took Mina to show her a sprout leading to an underground tunnel network. She explained that this was where the watchers hid during the day and that they never came out in daylight. Mina asked Kiara how long she had been there, and after thinking for a moment, Kiara said it had been 5 months. They returned to the nest, and Madeline and the others warned Mina never to turn her back to the mirror, never to open the door after sunset, and to stay away from the tunnels. Madeline explained that the watchers allowed them to live as long as they followed the rules, so Mina needed to do the same if she wanted to stay safe. Night falls, and as usual, Mina watches videos on the television. Outside, a creature moves among the trees. At one point, Mina gets up and approaches the mirror, touches her reflection, and presses her ear to it. She hears a strange sound and, frightened, returns to bed. Suddenly, the watchers start knocking on the mirror. Mina stands in shock, but Madeline tells her to stay calm and still, so the watchers will like her. The creatures continue knocking on the glass, making eerie sounds. The next day, Mina takes Daniel, who has become responsible for hunting since John disappeared, and they head out. Mina keeps seeing the old woman, but realizing she's just a hallucination, focuses on Daniel. She asks him how long he has been there, and he replies that it has been 8 months and a few days. Mina asks if he has ever seen a watcher, and Daniel says he never has, explaining that just seeing one could drive someone insane. Mina asks if Madeline was the one who told him that, and when Daniel confirms, Mina admits she doesn't believe her. Daniel also begins to doubt it. They approach one of the tunnels, and despite Daniel's pleas not to, Mina enters with his help. Standing in the sunlight, Daniel warns her not to leave the light. Mina uses a lighter to explore the tunnels and finds a journal dated April 1992, an old camera, teddy bears, and other items. She decides to take these things with her. When Daniel grabs the items, a roar echoes behind Mina. Turning around, she sees something moving in the darkness toward her. Terrified, she tells Daniel to throw the rope, and when a strange hand tries to reach through the sunlight to grab her, Daniel throws the rope again. The creature retreats into the darkness. Mina takes the items back to the nest and claims she found them on her way. Then she returns to Daniel. Madeline, who is suspicious, asks Mina what she saw exactly, but Mina lies, saying she saw something inside the nest. Daniel confirms that electronic devices don't work outside the shelter, but they might work inside. He suggests that the professor could have created a power source beneath them and knew how to handle electronics. Daniel connects the camera to the television to set up an external surveillance system. In the middle of the night, the group waits for the watchers, but they are delayed. Suddenly, 2 human legs appear on the camera, indicating someone is at the entrance. Madeline insists it's impossible for anyone to survive outside the nest after dark, and explains that this must be a trick to open the door. She confronts Mina, stating she knows Mina wrote about finding the items. Suddenly, the man outside, who seems to be a man, begins to complain about pain and asks for help. Kiara recognizes the voice as John's and rushes to check if it's really him. She tries to open the door, but Madeline stops her, reminding her of the rules. The fake John claims he's hurt and needs assistance, but Madeline looks at Mina, questioning where she went in the morning. A terrified Mina admits she went down into the tunnel and insists she doesn't want to stay there anymore. Kiara glances outside and asks the imposter John about a book, but he surprisingly says he doesn't know what it is. This raises Kiara's suspicions since John was the one who gave her that book. She insists he looks toward the camera at the door to prove it's him. But just then, a strange roar is heard, and the camera breaks. The group stands before the mirror, where the watchers appear furious, pounding on the walls and shattering the glass. In the morning, they return to the tunnel where they found the items. Madeline throws the wheel inside and tells the others not to break the rules, but encourages them that they will find a way to escape. After a short while, a strange creature emerges from the tunnel, taking the wheel and dragging it away. A few days pass, and Mina reflects on her life, remembering the day her mother died. They had been on a road trip, and young Mina had distracted her mother from the road, causing her to collide with another vehicle. As a result of the accident, only Mina and her sister survived. Mina sketches symbols in her notebook, now responsible for collecting nearby medical data. She observes Madeline and Daniel arguing, as Daniel has become slow in setting traps and bait to catch food. Mina returned to the nest, where she had drawn part of the explored area on the ground. Kiara was sitting on a chair, but as soon as Mina started to speak, Kiara abruptly left the nest, causing Mina to worry and follow her. She found Kiara on the verge of throwing herself into one of the tunnels, desperate to be taken to the same place where her husband was. Suddenly, a scream drew their attention, and they saw Madeline tied up by her legs, with Daniel running away after having done something to her. Kiara chased after him while Mina rushed to free Madeline so they could all return to the nest. Unfortunately, when they got back, they found the place locked. Night was approaching, and Daniel wouldn't allow them to enter. Mina realized that Daniel wouldn't open the door for them. Madeline took Mina to the makeshift shelter made from branches and rotting materials, explaining that this helped mask their scent. Madeline stressed the importance of staying inside the nest and being visible in the light. Meanwhile, Daniel and Kiara were waiting for the Watchers when a creature resembling a humanoid figure appeared in the shelter where the two women were. The creature approached them, moving ominously with a terrifying face. It stood upright, its body a dark, monstrous shape, emitting a chilling sound. As it approached, other creatures began to gather, likely noticing that the two women were missing. This gave Kiara and Mina just enough time to convince Daniel to open the door for them. Finally, Daniel relented and opened the door. Madeline, who had been extremely anxious, knew that there was no time for arguments. They all stood before the mirror, aware that danger was closing in around them. Madeline then shared her true story, explaining that she had been a professor of folklore and mythology. She had been aware of the dangers of the forest from the beginning, but chose to enter it regardless. One day, as the sun was setting while she was returning to the nest, she encountered a creature that looked just like her but taller, and with a frightening face. Madeline elaborated that the Watchers were ancient beings known by various names in different legends and traditions, such as changeling, fae, wendigo, or magical creatures. All these names referred to shapeshifters with the ability to study their victims and transform into exact replicas of them, even mimicking their voices. To prove her point, one of the creatures spoke in Kiara's voice, another in Daniel's, one in Mina's, and one in Madeline's voice. The group, frightened that the Watchers might break down the door, pushed a table against it, revealing a hidden passage under Daniel's rug. Daniel knocked on the glued section until it broke, and behind them was a refuge. Without wasting time, they opened it and entered. Mina went in first, carrying her belongings, and the others followed before the Watchers could break the glass and enter the nest. The refuge was spacious, equipped with electricity and signs that the previous owner had been studying these creatures. Mina found a computer and began searching for information, discovering a folder filled with videos. One of them featured Dr. Roy Kilmartin, who recorded his first entry on September 24, 2009. The professor stated that the refuge was a stronghold, and every night, these creatures would watch him through the glass. A few days later, in another recording, the doctor noted that the Watchers were improving daily, capable of transforming into people but not perfectly. They were learning quickly. One of the videos revealed that while building the refuge, the professor had seen 13 men in one day, men without families or knowledge of their fate. The night after that, just before dusk, he hosted a dinner outside, returning to the refuge only to hear their screams in the distance. Another video showed the professor encountering a Watcher that looked like a girl, marveling at the creature's ability to change shape and perfectly imitate their original versions. In the next video, Dr. Kilmartin appeared with one of the creatures inside a cage in the refuge. He approached it, confirming that it was not the same being, but the creature began to attack violently. Mina was watching the last video, number 300, in which Kilmartin expressed his disgust at what he was witnessing. He explained that although he had a plan to escape, he wouldn't return to the human world again. He destroyed his experimental samples and mentioned that there was a boat on the river at point 134. He advised anyone escaping from the forest to follow the birds, as they were the only ones that knew the way out. In his last words, he urged anyone escaping to go to the university office and destroy everything. The video continued to play, showing him walking towards the nest, followed by the sound of gunshots. After learning everything about the doctor, the group spent that night with high spirits to forget the danger they were in. The next morning, they prepared to leave, and Madeline advised them to stay alert because the magic of the forest would try to mislead them at point 134. The group paused, and Mina released a bird to find the way out. After passing point 134, they reached a location known in legends as the stone that blocks the passages of the imprisoned fairies. Madeline explained that these magical creatures once lived like gods among humans and tried to establish a bond between nature and humanity. However, a time came when humans feared their power, leading to a war between the two. The shapeshifters were imprisoned in a deep grave and sealed with large stones to prevent their return. For centuries, these creatures crawled on the surface, discovering that they had lost their magical wings, which left them unable to escape the forest. The group continued their journey, fearful of failure. Suddenly, it started to rain, and a flock of birds flew in front of them, indicating that night was approaching and that the forest would become more dangerous as the shapeshifters began to emerge from the tunnels. Fortunately, the group reached the river that the doctor had mentioned and found the boat nearby. They were overjoyed, but then heard the roar of the creatures coming from the direction of the boat. However, Daniel, in his foolishness, heard the fake John calling him. The three women who were untying the boat saw Daniel carrying John, but Kiara tried to warn him that this was not her husband. Unfortunately, they didn't have time to help the young man, and he quickly realized he had been deceived. The creature in John's form injured Daniel's leg, making it impossible for him to walk, and then it overpowered him, killing him. Many shapeshifters emerged on the riverbank, and when the three women left in the boat, they saw the creature transforming into Daniel. The next morning, Mina awoke to the sound of birds singing and noticed they were close to the women's bridge. The three women got off the boat and waited. Fortunately, a car came speeding by, and the driver stopped. When Mina asked him where he was going, he said he was heading to the city of Jawai. They quickly got in, and soon after they arrived safely in the city of Jawai. Mina returned home the next day and decided to visit Kilmartin's office, successfully gaining entry by pretending to be the professor's niece. Inside, she discovered a box with a voice recorder containing the doctor's voice discussing a discovered manuscript that revealed the ancient history of the days when fairies lived among humans before they became wild. The manuscript explained how fairies coexisted with humans, becoming part of their families and partners in life. However, this intermingling of species led to the creation of strange beings, with the power to transform or replicate the deceased. Following this, a war broke out with humans that cursed the shapeshifters. The doctor expressed his views and desire to uncover the truth behind this legend, suggesting that if it were true, humans could harness this magic for many purposes, including resurrecting the dead. Mina found other surprising items, which prompted her to take a taxi to Kiara's house. Once there, she showed Kiara photos of Kilmartin with his wife Madeline, who had never revealed to them that she was the doctor's wife and had claimed she didn't know him when she appeared in the videos. Mina also discovered that the real wife of the doctor had died long before his research began, leading them to conclude that Madeline, who had been with them all this time, was actually a transformed fairy. However, she was certainly different since she could walk in sunlight without any issues. Mina expressed her sorrow at having helped one of the Watchers escape from the forest and emphasized that they needed to return her soon. After a few minutes, they waited for the fake Madeline to arrive. But while Mina was washing her hands, she noticed cockroaches in the sink, realizing that the environment was saturated with magic. Suddenly, a car approached the house, and when the woman got out, Mina recognized that it was Kiara in the vehicle. She understood that the one with her was also a Watcher in Kiara's form. Mina confronted the Watcher, telling her she would take her place the moment Kiara entered. The Watcher vanished and reappeared behind Mina in the form of John, kissing her before shoving her into the mirror. Mina asked the Watcher, who was in her form, about their protection all those days. The Watcher, taking the shape of Daniel, replied that she had kept them like pets, studying them to become just like them. After thanking Mina for helping her escape, the Watcher pulled her towards the door to watch her transformation. This time, Madeline revealed that after centuries of imprisonment, she was finally free, and her true name was Henri Un, known among them as the Strange One. She began to change her shape and explained that when the professor came to the forest and found her, he promised to tell her how to escape, but he later attempted to shoot her, which left her no choice but to kill him. Mina ran to check on Kiara, but through the glass window she saw a Watcher that looked exactly like her. The creature rushed in, pushed Mina against the glass and injured her hand, stating that it would walk among humans using her body. Mina tried to communicate with the Watcher, asking why it could walk outside the forest and in the dark when the others could not. This intrigued the creature, which asked Mina for her release to learn more from her. After that, Mina revealed that she had found documents at the university showing that the professor had been keeping records of how these two species lived together in the past, and even built families and had children they called Howanges. Mina told Madeline that she wasn't just a Watcher but a hybrid, as she had human DNA within her. The creature then began to emit energy, and wings started to emerge from her back. She expressed to Mina her hope that she could be right, and then took flight to seek out more of her kind. Following this encounter, Mina returned to Kiara, helping her to get back on her feet. Each day, Mina recounted her entire story to her twin sister, Lucy, who appeared saddened by the events. The movie ends with a young girl watching Mina's house from the street, revealing herself to be Madeline in the form of a little girl. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button to get more new videos. See ya!